Haughton, excited to be the new principal at Kittbridge Upper School. Where am I from? That's a tricky question. I'm the son of Jamaican immigrants. We came to the U.S. when I was 3. I grew up in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, just north of Miami. And then I actually moved to Houston, Texas right after college in 2010. And that's where I did the bulk of my teaching and leadership. And then I actually just moved to the Bay Area in June. Height of the pandemic, do not recommend, but that's why I'm here now.
All right, so if you've been from the South, tell me about that transition from, culture-wise, from the South with you coming over here to the West Coast.
Yeah, hey, that is the question, right? When I talk to my colleagues back in Texas, but also in Florida, we debate that a lot, right? I think about terms like restorative justice and what that means in different places. And so where I'm from, we're sort of on the cusp of being more restorative, right? We're not as far along as some of our colleagues here. And so back home, I think we're still a little bit more punitive, maybe a little bit tougher when we think about consequences for kids. Maybe we don't get the terminology as right versus I think here in the Bay, y'all have been doing it for a lot longer. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I disagree just in terms of what that right mix of restoration looks like. But it is a little bit different, yeah.
You're actually good on this. I was just about to ask you, do you feel like there's balance with it?
Ooh, man, I feel like I'm going to get in trouble with this one, y'all. But I'm going to be honest. I think right now we are unbalanced. For me, this is my 11th year in education. And I think when I first came in, we as a system, right, I'm talking like national education, urban schools in particular, we were a bit too punitive, right? We just had a habit of throwing the kids who needed the most supports away, right? I'll name it. We have black kids who get in trouble and all of a sudden it's throw them away, alternative schools, suspensions, pushing them really down the school to prison pipeline. And I think there was a movement, and a valid one that needed to be had to kind of be more restorative. The downside with that, though, unfortunately, as I've seen in maybe the last 2 or 3 years, perhaps the pendulum has maybe swung just a bit too far. And as a result, I think we went from maybe pushing kids down the school to prison pipeline to now potentially not holding them accountable. And that also hurts kids of color. And so I do hope in the next couple years, maybe we can kind of get a little bit more equilibrium.
How important is culture to academics?
I'm not sure you get to the highest of academic achievement if your culture isn't right.
Yeah, I asked that because it's like sometimes I feel like we just did some research and it's just talking about like how scholars are graduating high school without meeting the requirements to get accepted into a college. But a lot of times we always point at the schools like, okay, if the school's doing this, school needs to do this, school doing this, but it's like, how does the culture play in that academic-wise for us, making sure that we are holding scholars accountable? Because I feel like sometimes we would have like low expectations. And so when it comes to like IEPs and 504 plans, like what are your thoughts behind that when you're addressing that to parents? Like how do you message that to parents on pretty much letting them know what is an IEP and what is a 504 plan?
Yeah, I think for me, you got to find that right mix of being clear about what expectations are and what the supports will be, right? And so we'll provide supports for any kid that needs them. And as a school, we are going to step up, make sure those services are there. But there's always going to be a requirement or an expectation both on the family, guardian, parent, as well as the student, right? So I think about, let's say you got a student who, as part of their behavior plan, they have a special incentive program. And so when this student completes activities, they earn a Panther point, for example, thinking back to our campus. We as a school are going to put some financial backing, right? We're buying those incentives for kids, but the student also has a responsibility to actually take the effort to do the behaviors on the contract in order to earn those incentives. And so for me, it's got to be both. Everybody's got some skin in the game.
With distance learning, like as educators, it's like we're kind of caught in the middle. It's like we want to show empathy, but then we also want to make sure that we're holding our scholars accountable for doing their work as well too. And I know with you being an educator, you also have a daughter where you're doing what you need to do, hosting hosting meetings and professional developments, but you're also checking in on your daughter to make sure she's doing her work as well too. So it's like, so what is your advice to parents on how like to balance that work time and also having a time to check in on their scholar to make sure that they're doing their work as well too?
Yeah, listen, I was kind of hoping y'all can help me with that. I'm not sure. My partner and I sometimes, she's a Spanish teacher and we struggle with that. Small funny story. My daughter at one point, she was in class, or she was supposed to be in class. She's coming over and messing with me in a Zoom meeting. I look over and she had positioned a stuffed animal in front of her screen with the headphones on. And obviously, like, her teacher and I knew what's going on, but for her, she's in kindergarten, it was like, that was her way to be like, I got somebody in class, but it's not her, and I thought it was hilarious. For parents with older kids, it is real tricky, right? When you aren't necessarily able to check in with them all day to make sure they're doing their work, it's tough. I'm gonna be real. I lean in here in terms of just being very honest and real about what's going on with your kids. Like, my daughter is 6 years old, but I tell her every once in a while straight up, she doesn't pay any bills. School is her job, and her mom and I are the ones that handle things at home. And so what that means is, unless she's willing to put up a third of all our bills, I need her in class every day, knocking out work, paying attention. And she does lose privileges, right? There's been times where she doesn't get to use her mom or I's cell phone. She can't get on YouTube. She can't watch Ryan's toy review. She's 6 years old, but she's a diva, y'all. And so for her, picking her clothes is a big thing already. And so when she's not doing what she needs to do in class, all of a sudden, mom and I are picking those clothes. And it's not dresses and skirts, it's jeans, which she hates. And I do think for parents, even though it's tough, you gotta set those ground rules. And if kids aren't meeting those expectations, you cannot shy away from holding them accountable. Because the rest of their life, they're gonna be held accountable. So take that cell phone, take those video games, take away the TV, make them watch TV with you, have them read to you, but you gotta be strict and hold them accountable, even though it is tough. And I'm saying that, y'all, and my daughter will, cry or throw a tantrum or make me feel a little guilty, and it's hard. Sometimes her mom gotta keep me strong, and sometimes I'm the one keeping her mom strong. So I know it's tough, but you gotta hold them accountable.
I see that accountability is coming up a lot. So do you feel like you get a lot of pushback from parents when you're working on making sure you're holding scholars accountable?
That part is tricky, I think, because for the most part we've been virtual, and this is my first year here in Oakland. Gotten a little bit of pushback, but I do expect more pushback next year, quite frankly. Yeah. I can offer some examples of pushback I've gotten in years past, even in Houston. For my kids who had lunch detention, right? So kids who were disruptive in the cafeteria, maybe didn't do their homework, whatever the case may be. We would often grab a broom and a dustpan, a garbage pan, and we would go around and not just clean the cafeteria, but clean the entire school. I would often grab a broom and a dustpan myself. This was my way of sort of being restorative. So like, yeah, you made a mess, but like I'm gonna be responsible, even though I didn't do it. I'm accountable for it. So like as we as a collective are cleaning up the campus, I'm also just kind of rapping with the students, getting to know them a little bit more, and they enjoyed it. However, not every parent was supportive of this idea, and I did have some parents who were kind of like, that's not the type of punishment. But I was also real with them. I said, look, here's some options, right? Your student failed to live up to very clear expectations, and so one of the options was for them to work with me and another group of kids to clean the campus, do something positive, and for me to get to know them a bit more. That is restoration in my mind. Other options include a detention where they just write rules, or if an escalated situation, a suspension or something like that. To me, that is unrestorative. One, it doesn't help the kid to see that when you cause a problem, you fix it. It doesn't benefit the school community. And three, it doesn't allow me an opportunity to get to know the kid. Most parents, when I explained it to them like that, they did kind of get it. Not everybody was on board. I'm gonna be real. I think part of that is cultural. I do see growing entitlement across the board and everybody, and maybe not everybody wants to be held accountable, and that's a societal issue.
So if we had a pie chart, scholar, parent, educator, like what percentage does a parent's responsibility on that pie chart when we're talking about accountability?
Yeah, wow. I'll be honest. I think for me, I lean into like a 50%. No, this is not research based. This is just me. This is not Kip. This is me completely, my personal opinion. I think parents are the bulk, right? Kids are with them longer. Kids have known them longer. And so for me, with my own daughter anyway, her mom and I, we're half, right? And then she's maybe another 25%. And then that school is maybe another 25%. But we as parents, we set the foundations. If she can come to school ready, then the campus can impart wisdom and knowledge and skills into her. But at the end of the day, when she comes back home, I've got to be reinforcing what the teachers and educators are doing, or at least not actively going against it, right? Because not every parent has the capacity all the time to be supportive. But I think in that case, support us, right? So like, look, I've never taught a kid how to read. I always did middle school. My daughter's in kindergarten. I don't really know how to support teaching her how to read. But when her teacher says, hey, you need to do A, B, C, and D, that is what we are going to do, A, B, C, or D. So I can't necessarily support, or I can't do it myself, but whatever the teacher says goes in that regard.
With you being a principal, how important is your role by being a black educator and a black leader?
Yeah, that is big. I think about my own educational experiences, and I was blessed, y'all. So I actually went to elementary, middle, and high schools that were like 98% black, and our staffs were black. Most of my teachers and principals went to HBCUs. It was not uncommon for me to see black people in leadership. I even had elementary black male teachers, right? Mr. Brown in 5th grade, and then Coach Francis later on in middle school and high school. That's foundational. I'm not sure if I would have been an educator had I not seen those black people and black men teaching and leading me. And so when I think about my own leadership, I realize kids sometimes they will do what they see as being possible. I also think that shows up for me in the type of black man that I am, right? And so am I being purposeful in showcasing who I am, but also what it means to be black holistically, right? So like I think about things like, if you came into my office right now, you're gonna see a stack of Harry Potter books in the back. I got a Star Wars poster, right? Those are things that kids might not necessarily associate with being black, right? Or like subcultures that our kids might not always feel comfortable with. But it's important for me to showcase those other parts of my personality so that all of my students can understand that it's okay to be whoever you are, unapologetically black, and whatever you do is black because that's who you are. So I think that's another piece of leadership. And the final thing is, I think the ability to speak truth to power. Sometimes when you've lived the experiences of your kids and your families, you have a certain credibility with them. And so listen, sometimes I have to ask my teachers and my students and my families to go above and beyond, or I need them, frankly, to trust me. And I think they're a little bit more likely to do that when it's someone that looks like them and has been in similar situations. And so I think when you're going through difficult times like COVID-19 pandemic, leading a school through that, people have just a little bit more trust when they feel like they know you.
And it's more even powerful that it's just the fact that you're the principal. Like, because growing up, usually when you see a black man in education, it's like he's like the disciplinary person. Like he's the one that, hey, you had the lady who was in charge, but then you had this black man who's like going to be the one like, okay, cool, you make sure you control the kids and get them in line. Or whatever. But I think it's just very powerful the fact that you're in a leadership position where scholars are able to actually see like just success, a successful black man. They don't have to be a drug dealer. They don't have to be an NBA star. They don't have to be like a celebrity. Like this is success right in front of you, and you see this person every day. And so when it comes to representation in the school, like what are your thoughts about like even with the books that they read?
Yeah, no, that's real. I think we have to make sure we're putting in front of our kids representation from a variety of backgrounds, right? You hit on something earlier in your comment around black men oftentimes being those disciplinarians, and I think to all my friends and colleagues, black men, in mostly in Houston, we struggle with that, right? Because we enjoy the culture piece, right? Like I love leading culture, I love being the disciplinarian, the restorative person, but I also recognize sometimes you don't want to be pigeonholed or boxed into that only thing, right? And then you're actually not viewed as an instructional leader. You're not viewed as like someone who understands higher level academics. And what does that do when kids associate Mr. or Miss so-and-so only with culture and behavior, but not necessarily the academic piece, the books, the tests, college? So that's key. I also think that means branching out a little bit, right? And so getting out of our own comfort zone. So when I think about books that were instrumental to me, I immediately go to older classics, right? Like I read Roots and the autobiography of Malcolm X starting in 8th grade, reread Malcolm X several times, right? Those are books that I grew up and helped frame my black experience. But those are not the only books that are out there for kids today, right? And so I even think about myself. Am I well versed enough on books by black LGBTQ authors, trans authors, books by black women? And so expanding my own horizons to say there's a ton of black experiences out there that I need to have, and I need to go find them so I can bring those to my kids as well.
Even the successful ones, because it seemed like with me coming up, from my experience coming up, the books that we read when it was about our people, it was either about slavery, civil rights, or something basically like we was only victorious in doing things that we should already have, which is freedom, you feel me? Mm-hmm. But they was never highlighting entrepreneurs who were black, like scientists who were black, people who basically of success that was black. And so do you feel like this plays a major part when it comes to like our literacy? First of all, let me just go back. Our literacy in our black community is already low, and it has not changed since way back when. So how do you feel about just more books being incorporated in the school where that actually scholars can relate to, and how would that increase the literacy rates?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. I think like increasing the representation is key. I know at our campus we order a ton of books. We were given a grant this year, and so if a kid asks for a book, that kid can get that book. And I do think that's important. But if I'm being honest, my push here is I think kids need to see us reading. And reading needs to be rewarded. So I'm gonna go back to my own experiences. So my mom is an avid reader. She'll probably get mad at me if I share this, but she had a lot of romantic type books in her library. I'm not even sure why she let me read them, but I guess I was reading something, so she liked it. But I always saw her reading, right? If she had a few minutes after dinner before bed, she was on the couch. My dad and I are watching TV, but she's reading. My dad wasn't a big reader in terms of books, but he was always reading the newspaper, right? We always ordered the newspaper. So I saw my parents reading. And I remember when I was younger, got into Pokemon cards and video games, but my dad wouldn't really buy me any of those things until like I read him a book, showed him a book. And also, when I didn't have money for nice clothes or certain things, my parents always had money for books. So my house had books. And I think that's important. If kids, like we can give kids all the books they want, but if they don't see people that look like them, that they know and love and trust reading as well, then they're not gonna read. They see us on the cell phone all day, they're gonna be on their cell phone all day. They see us playing video games all day, watching TV all day, that's what they're gonna do. So my push here is actually like, as a community, I wanna see us reading. I think just doing that alone, showing people that like reading is not only cool, but it's just normal, right? It ain't nothing special. You read, I read, we all read, would actually probably be the biggest impact on literacy in the Black community.
Basically, adults have to step up and be the example.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
We can't ask them to do something that we not doing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you in your position, what is like your ultimate goal, your ultimate mission?
Yeah, man, I'm still trying to figure that out, y'all. I think for me, my ultimate mission is to help communities develop schools where kids can learn and grow to then transform the communities themselves, right? And so I look at school as a vehicle for kids to come in and say, my life is not where I want it to be. This place that I go to every day is giving me the knowledge and skills, and most importantly, the practice to eventually change that and do what I want, right? So that's like career, college, military, whatever it is, being an entrepreneur. School allows them to change the trajectory of their life. And so when I look back on my life, hopefully 50, 60, maybe I'll live forever years from now, I can say, you know what? I was working in the community and the average income was this. The average reading level was this. Poverty was this. Crime was this. But then when I was working at a school, my team and I, over the course of many years, we were able to essentially transform this community to now it's a community that's winning, and in every metric of life, things are better, and that can be tied towards people coming to school and using it to get where they want to be. And so
I'm already sure you communicate your mission to your teachers and your staff, and I'm sure like your staff members like know they ride for you because they see you putting in work, and so therefore they know how much you enjoy being with the kids, but also enjoy making sure that they elevate as well too. If you was in a classroom or just scholars and your parents at your school,
how would you present your mission to them, and how could they help you bring that mission to life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's first kind of talking to them and asking them, what is it that they want, right? Because I'm going to need to sell this mission to them, but if they not bought in, they're not going to buy what I'm selling. So the first thing is like, okay, what is it that you want for your life, your community, your family, yada, yada, yada. Okay, based on that, here are the things that I think that we can do. And so I think you got to get that buy-in, and then like sort of share my vision, mission, but not just talking about it in these lofty terms, but being very, very specific. Like, what does that actually mean? We say we're going to send kids to college, okay, as an example, okay, how many kids we sending to college? What types of colleges are we sending them? Why are we sending them to college, right? Yeah, you got to be very intentional, because I think sometimes we sell kids on these dreams that sound good, but what does it actually mean to them, right? So like I think about, for me, this is the way you bought me into college. Yo, this is the average income for people that don't go to college. This is the average income for people that do go to college. And then I thought about, okay, what type of car do I want to drive? What kind of house do I want to live in? And having teachers that laid it out for me so clearly, I was like, okay, I don't even need you to want it for me anymore, because the vision that you just laid out is what I actually want for my life. So now I'm going to go ahead and get that from myself, and you're just helping me, as opposed to you didn't lay out the vision very clearly to me. So you driving towards this vision, and I kind of feel a connection to you, so I'm like kind of following you, but I'm not really driving towards it myself. And so of course I'm not going to put in as much work as you put in. And if my teachers are coming to work every day and they're the only ones going home tired, then that means our vision ain't clear, because it should be the kids that's really doing the learning and the growth, and frankly the struggling.
That's funny, because that's actually the quote that I have on my bag. It's, do you lean with it or do you rock with it?
So it's like everybody say they want something. It's like that's the lean. It's like you say you want it, but do you actually rock with it? Do you believe you deserve that? And are you actually going to put in the work what it takes to get there? And so that's the biggest thing, is making sure like people who say if you're going to help somebody, you got to make sure that the person wants to be helped as well too, and they're going to actually implement the steps to make sure that mission happens as well. So with us closing, are there any final words that you would like to leave us with?
No final words other than just gratitude. So to everybody helping to put this together, as well as those listening, we're in this together, and so I appreciate your time. Hopefully you will see this and it will spur your thinking. I'm glad to be here in Oakland. It already feels like home, and that's something, because the community that I'm coming from, y'all, they love me, they love my family, and I felt a really strong connection. I've only been here less than a calendar year now, and I'm feeling the love already. And so just thank you. I appreciate you. I'm committed to doing all I can to help us transform education here in the city.